I didn't want to do it, the woman tells the baby as she throws another one out of her way. The hole in the ground is deeper than yesterday, but the soil after rain is wetter, heavier, sloppier. She's fallen into the mud a couple of times now, much to her dismay. She supposes that she's probably not in the position to complain about her working conditions. The woman throws another small pile of dirt and then collapses onto the ground next to the baby. She pulls her knapsack onto her lap, opens the flap on the top, and digs around inside. She pulls out a banana, peels the fruit, and passes it to the baby. The baby swats at the banana, knocking it into the dirt. She lets out another earth-shattering cry that wails out into the coast like a siren. "Would you knock it off?" the woman snaps, desperate for the baby to stop making noise just for a few minutes. For a moment, the baby stares at the woman in surprise, startled by her outburst, and proceeds to cry harder. The woman wonders briefly if she should throw the baby into the hole she's digging. Then she regrets wondering such a thing and pulls the small girl into her lap. But as usual, the girl refuses to settle, twisting fervently in the woman's arms. She stands up, stalks across the grass, bangs her little hands against the metal box, and cries some more. "You're gonna have to get over it, kid," says the woman, standing back up again. She brushes the dirt off her pants, picks up her shovel again, and digs it into the ground. "Because she's not coming back." The baby looks at the woman, who tosses another pile of dirt over the cliff. The baby puts her fingers in her mouth and leans her head against the box. "Stop touching that thing, will you?" snaps the woman. "Last thing you need now is blood on your hands." Okay, so that's the prologue. And I'm going to read a couple of pages from chapter 1. So this is our main character, Hannah's entrance into her mother's house. And I hope you enjoy. My mother's house is barely a house at all. It stands crooked, worn from the elements and the neglect. The ancient saltbox home is the only remaining structure of what once was a community long ago. It was paid for and restored 30 years ago by a wealthy seaside dreamer, who subsequently got sick of the fog and the wind and the southern coast and decided to move to Florida instead. He put the house on the market, realized no one else wanted it either, and ultimately reduced it for quick sale. My mother was the one who found the ad in the paper and decided that it would make the most perfect home for a writer like she. A quaint little shoebox on the edge of the coast, free from people and distractions. I'm certain the realtor had not been prepared for a sale, which was how she got the place so cheap. I'm also certain that the realtor did not believe my lonely mother would be moving into the property permanently. Not 5 hours from civilization, kilometers from anyone else. Those conditions are not ideal for anyone, especially not for a petite single mother and her toddler daughter. But alas, she did. And my mother is still there, 22 years later, a permanent barnacle to that house and that cliff. My car pulls up and over the final hill, and at last I reach the private stretch of an unpaved road that leads to my destination. The gravel trail, essentially her driveway, has 3 sharp turns and then a long, straight path. Once you get through, if you haven't lost the bottom of your car, you can finally find the house. When you get there, the view is postcard-worthy, almost as if the ray of a lighthouse shines its bright beam on your destination like a nautical spotlight. I spot the house as my car rounds the final corner and wonder if it is worth pulling over for a photo. I have seen this view so many dozens of times before, but this, now, will be my last. I hesitate for one more moment and then keep driving up the driveway. The saltbox house is iconic in photographs for its squareness, its simplicity in design, its ease on the eyes. They are beautiful little homes, the keystone of rural Newfoundland architecture. My mother's house, a bright white box, is no exception. 6 windows on the front, 2 rows and 2 colors, a black rectangular door. In the middle of the roof is a small triangular notch with a circular window. The house could have been drawn by a child. My stomach turns as my car approaches slowly, pulling into view. There is no turning back now, no reversing direction and calling off the visit. I can already smell the inside of the house from the car, feel the sandy texture of the carpet between my bare toes. I do not want to be here today, trifling through the contents of the house I spent my life in, preparing to say goodbye to the sallow structure forever, preparing to tell my mother that this will be goodbye forever from both of us, because I do not intend to keep the property after she leaves. I park at the end of the driveway, which is nothing more than a shallower pit of gravel than the road. My mother has owned only one car over the course of her entire life, a tiny catch-bred Ford Focus, which sits rotting at the top of the drive. The car has not started for years, has not moved since the first trills of dementia showed in my mother's behaviors. Ominously good timing. The car refused to start when my mother became a danger to herself. I stare sadly at the car for a few moments, then again at the house, mapping out its shapes in my mind so I won't forget. Maybe I'll draw it someday for my children. At one time, I figured I'd keep the house as a summer home for my kids, but those days are long gone now and will never return. The house is in no condition now for vacationing. Its wide rectangular body is starting to swell and slump, the windows rotting away. The black shingles of the roof are crumbling and the paint is flaking off the surface of the door. The property is grimy from years of neglect. I believe, to the disagreement of my stubborn mother, that the house is far beyond repair now. No one is going to buy something as dilapidated as this. No one wants to buy a fixer-upper 5 hours from the nearest hardware store. I get out of the car and breathe in the scent of home, the sulfurous stink of sea air and salt water. I take a small moment of zen, isn't the sea supposed to be a calming force, and push my way up the driveway toward my mother's front door. You can do this, Hannah. You can survive 4 more days. The latch of the door handle hitches, as always, so I have to thrust my weight against the hard panel of wood to open the door. It sticks, and then swings open, spilling me suddenly into the porch. A graceful entrance for a graceful day. I sigh at the irony of my entrance, composed of a fall from a rotten door. My stomach hurts and rolls. I shove the door shut again behind me, listening to the suction of the swollen wood. There's a sudden noise in the house beyond. I peer through the cluttered porch, into the hall, into the doorway of the kitchen. I see a glimpse of movement, and then my mother's face leans in, her body appearing in the hall. Her low voice garbles a sudden, "Hannah!" and there is a frenzy of hurried footsteps toward me, where I stand in the porch. She is wearing a purple apron, her blue eyes shining with joy. She thrusts herself to me and into a squishy hug. "It's Hannah," she tells me. "Hannah is here." Her warm head worms into my neck, nuzzling closer. I feel the sharp poke of her keys, the set she wears around her neck for safekeeping, digging into my side. And then she pulls away, releases me as quickly as she approached. "Hannah is coming here," she tells me, as if I don't already know, as if we hadn't had this exchange. I pull on the tongue of my sneakers, have to pry them all the way off from the sweat and the suction of wearing them all day. I lean against the wall and notice in the porch's corner, where the wall meets the floor, is a budding gray cobweb, a growing blanket of dust. Dirt coats my fingertips from the surface of the wall, and once my shoes are off, I wipe my hands in the fabric of my jeans. I can tell merely by the mess in the porch what the condition of the house is going to be. Filthy.